beautiful people. It has been a while since I've sat down and chatted with you guys specifically about what I've been reading lately. I have a whole month to wrap up with you guys. Apologies. Here we are for my May wrap up. I read a book that I thought I was gonna like so much more than I did not, and then I have like my favorite book of the year thus far. So it's gonna be a good one. Let's dive in. We're gonna start out with The Vial, and I'm very happy to say there is only one of them, and then we're going from like The Vial to amazing. So books under The Vial, I will just say, these are books that I did not get on with. This doesn't mean that they are horrific books and no one should read at all. They just didn't work for me, and that's okay. So the Vial book that I read this month is The Survivors by Jane Harper. This is my second Jane Harper book, and I don't know if I get on with her writing. This follows a man named Kieran who goes back to his hometown after his parents are struggling. His father is quite ill and he's trying to be there for his family. However, he did leave for a very good reason. There is tragedy in his past. There's a lot of guilt that he's harbored for years and years and years. And he goes back, and when he goes back, there's a body found on the beach. And so much stuff kind of whirls around his head, and the past and the present kind of link together over the course of this book. I felt like this was an incredibly slow burn, and I think this is something that Jane Harper does on a whole, because the other book that I read by her, which I cannot remember the name of at the moment, was also a slow burn, and then at the end things all come together, and it's so well done, the things coming together, that you think, oh, that was an amazing book. However, from myself, I'm not always loving it while I'm reading it, and so that is just like a me and her thing not matching up. But in this case, the slow burn was like, I felt burnt out at the end of reading this. It just, I didn't overly care about the history and the sadness in the history of this book, and then I didn't overly care about the new mystery that we're trying to work through, and didn't care much about any of the characters in this book. And that was a struggle for me, because you want to care about what's happening, about who it's happening to, and I just did not. So that was a Vial one for me. If you can hear stuff in the background, apologies. That is Winnie chewing on some sort of bone over here. She's in heaven. It's a bit gross for me to listen to. But anyway, speaking of a slow burn, but a slow burn that worked for me, this is The Heights by Louise Candlish. This is the first Louise Candlish that I've read. I think I have another book on my shelves by her, The Other Passenger, and this just worked. I bought this last year on a whim. I was like strolling through Walmart, saw it, read the blurb, and thought, I'm interested. This follows a woman who sees a man she believes should be dead across the way. She's in like an apartment building with a client, and she sees a man that should be dead because she killed him across the way, and she's unsure what in the world is going on and why he's still alive. This is a book about family. This is definitely like a domestic-y thriller, not necessarily about the like a couple, more about a family, because this includes her daughter, this includes her son, and the dynamics of trying to raise a teenager, which I imagine is not easy. And it's about the struggles of raising a teenager, and also how you're never really done your job. You're always going to be a protective mama bear, and this main character definitely showed that throughout this book. The twists in here, I was very surprised by. I really liked how it all was laid out. I liked the twists and turns in here for sure. Ruth Ware liked it, and so did I. So I'll definitely read another Louise Candlish for sure. Oh, another book. I really, really enjoyed this one. Honestly, if I didn't give it 5 stars, I should have. This is Homecoming by Kate Morton. Now, I will say the last Kate Morton book that I read, which was The Clockmaker's Daughter, I think it was, I just thought, I don't know what she's doing. She's going down this road that I don't like in writing. And then this felt like she was back to her old self, if that makes any sense. It was a really big book. Her books are usually quite large. It's over 500 pages, but I was hooked from the beginning. This starts with a tragedy that occurs on Christmas Eve, 1959 in Australia. A family is found dead by a delivery man. And we go forwards in time and meet Jess, who's a journalist, and she has to go home because her grandmother Nora, who raised her, fell and is in some trouble. And she goes home and she starts to realize like why her grandmother fell. She was trying to access the attic, which Jess herself was always told, like, you can't go into this area. You can go anywhere on the grounds, but not here. And so she goes there and realizes that her grandmother had secrets in her past, and she's trying to uncover these secrets while her grandmother is on her, is quite ill at the hospital. The one thing that I did have a hard time with in this book is that Jess is kind of spending a lot of time trying to uncover this mystery of her grandmother's past that links to this tragedy years and years ago in 1959. When I feel like a lot of the time I was like, shouldn't you just be by her bedside? Like, she's not doing well. She's an older woman. She's had a fall. You never know what's going to happen. I did find that a little bit frustrating, I will say. But other than that, like, I really, really enjoyed this. I was trying to figure out what happened to this family up until the very end. I loved what happened to the family in the end. It was so well done. Really, really addictive as well. Could not put it down, even though it's 500 something pages. Another splendid book that I read was a book called Cultish. This is nonfiction, and this author did a really interesting thing in this book where she examined actual cults. Like, you definitely dive into that, but we also examine companies and, you know, groups that have cult aspects to them, that have used some of the wording from cults and the community, like, needing one another and that kind of thing to better their business. It was really fascinating. She spoke to a few like fitness groups that have that cultish kind of vibe. She spoke to so many different things that, you know, you wouldn't at all call a cult. Like, you're not in danger of your lives, but there is an aspect to it that's just slightly over the top. She spoke to some religions having some of these aspects to them, and I just thought it was really interesting and well laid out and well thought through. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I learned a lot about the language surrounding cults and how they draw you in and all of those things. Very good. And now it's time to talk about my favorite book that I read in not only April, but in the year thus far. And that is The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. She's recently come out with another book that I really want to buy because I just loved this book. This follows a group of gay men in the 80s. We follow Yale, who is essentially watching his friends pass away from AIDS around him. He's not only mourning them, he's also fearing for his own life and what is to come, because this is at the time where they did not have all of the medication that they do now, and AIDS truly was like a death sentence for these men. And they were also dealing with all of the backlash of the rest of the world. We follow this group of men at this time, and then we follow a woman in the present day trying to find her daughter. Her daughter has been basically taken in by a cult and has disappeared in France. So she goes to France to find her daughter. And in the meantime, she is learning more about this time in the 80s when her brother died of AIDS and what happened to his group of friends. And I was just so invested in the story, in all of their stories. I cared about all of the characters, save one or two, and I was very invested in making sure everyone was okay. And of course, you know that they're not all going to be okay because AIDS is rampant and there is no cure, and they don't know how to stop it in its tracks. And it's devastating and wonderful and funny at times. I just can't say enough good things about it. I loved it. I hope you will read it too. And those are all of the books that I read in May. Not as many as I thought. I thought I had read way more than that, but that is okay. Let me know what the best book that you read. What was your favorite book that you read in May? I'd love to know, and I will talk with you very soon. Bye guys.